in the heart of a sweltering Atlanta courtroom, where the air hung heavy with the ghosts of America's fractured past, and the unyielding gaze of Justice's blindfolded statue loomed over all. A tiny black boy named Jamal Wilkins, no more than 8 years old, stood trembling on the witness stand, his small finger extended like a dagger toward the burly police officer seated at the defense table, Officer Harlan Reed, a man whose badge had long been tarnished by whispers of corruption and brutality. If this image alone sends chills down your spine, reminding you of the raw, unflinching truths that divide our nations across the Atlantic, from the streets of Ferguson to the echoes of Brixton, then don't wait another second. Subscribe now to dive deeper into narratives that expose the underbelly of power, challenge systemic injustices, and demand accountability. Because stories like this aren't just entertainment. They're a call to action for every American and Brit who believes in truth over tyranny. The story began not in that courtroom, but in the shadowed alleys of a forgotten neighborhood in Atlanta's South Side, where poverty clung to the cracked sidewalks like moss on ancient oaks, and where Jamal Wilkins lived with his grandmother, Miss Etta, in a shotgun house that creaked with every gust of wind from the nearby interstate. Jamal was a bright-eyed child, curious about the world in ways that often got him into trouble, poking at anthills with sticks, climbing fences to peek into abandoned lots, and asking questions that adults preferred to leave unanswered, like why the police cars patrolled their block more like predators than protectors. His mother had vanished years ago, swallowed by the city's drug epidemic, and his father was a ghost story told in hushed tones, locked away in a state penitentiary for a crime he swore he didn't commit. Miss Etta, with her calloused hands from decades of scrubbing floors in white folks' homes, raised Jamal on a diet of gospel hymns, collard greens, and stern warnings. Stay out of sight, baby. The world's got eyes that don't see you as a child. But on that fateful summer evening, 2 years before the courtroom drama unfolded, Jamal couldn't stay hidden. He was playing hopscotch on the stoop when the sirens wailed, piercing the dusk. Like a banshee's cry, Officer Harlan Reed, a veteran cop with a reputation for quick triggers and quicker cover-ups, was chasing a suspect through the neighborhood, a young black man named Tyrone Hayes, accused of boosting a car from a downtown lot. Tyrone was no saint. He'd had run-ins with the law before, petty thefts born of desperation in a city where jobs for ex-felons were as rare as rain in a drought. But on this night, Tyrone was innocent, or at least that's what the evidence would later suggest, though evidence has a way of twisting in the hands of those who wield power. Reed cornered Tyrone in an alley behind Jamal's house, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the twilight like a accusatory finger. Words were exchanged, heated and profane, and then the shot rang out sharp, final, echoing off the brick walls. Tyrone slumped to the ground, his life ebbing away in a pool of blood that seeped toward the storm drain. Jamal, hidden behind a rusted dumpster, saw it all. The way Red holstered his gun without a second's hesitation, the way he radioed in a fabricated tale of self-defense, claiming Tyrone had lunged at him with a knife that mysteriously appeared, later, planted like a seed of doubt. But Jamal saw no knife, no lunges. A man begging for mercy, hands raised in surrender. Terrified, the boy fled back to his grandmother's arms, his small body shaking as he whispered what he'd witnessed. Miss Etta, wise to the ways of a system that devoured black lives like appetizers, hushed him. You say nothing, here. They'll come for you next. And so, for months, Jamal buried the secret deep inside, where it festered like an untreated wound, giving him nightmares of blood and badges. But secrets have a way of surfacing, especially in a community simmering with rage. Whispers spread first among neighbors, then to activists who patrolled the streets with signs and chants, demanding justice for Tyrone. The case exploded into the national spotlight, fueled by cell phone videos from bystanders that captured the aftermath, but not the shot itself. Protests erupted. Hashtags trended, #Justice for Tyrone, trending across Twitter feeds in the US and UK, where similar stories of police misconduct in places like London and Manchester resonated like distant thunder. Officer Reed was indicted for manslaughter, a rare victory in a landscape littered with acquittals. But the trial promised to be a circus, with Reed's defense painting him as a hero besieged by thugs and agitators. The prosecution, led by a sharp young dame named Elena Vasquez, a Latina woman fighting her own battles in a white-dominated legal world, needed a smoking gun. That's when Jamal's name surfaced, an anonymous tip from a neighbor who'd overheard the boy's tearful confessions to Miss Etta. Social services got involved. Protective custody whispers turned to realities, and suddenly, Jamal was thrust into the glare of the courtroom, a pawn in a game far bigger than his 8-year-old mind could comprehend. The trial had been dragging on for weeks. A tedious parade of forensic experts debating bullet trajectories, character witnesses extolling Reed's dedicated service, and bodycam footage that conveniently glitched at the crucial moment. Reed sat stoic, his uniform pressed, his eyes cold as steel, supported by a phalanx of Blue Line loyalists who packed the gallery, their stares like daggers at anyone who dared question their brother-in-arms. Elena Vasquez called Jamal to the stand on a humid Tuesday morning, the courtroom buzzing with anticipation. The boy, dressed in an ill-fitting suit borrowed from a church thrift, climbed the steps with Miss Etta's hand on his shoulder, her face etched with worry lines deeper than the Grand Canyon. The judge, an elderly white man named Harlan, ironically, sharing a first name with the defendant, leaned forward, his gavel poised like a threat. "Son, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" Jamal nodded, his voice a squeak. "Yes, sir." Vasquez approached gently, her voice soft as a lullaby. "Jamal, can you tell us what you saw that night in the alley?" The boy fidgeted, his eyes darting to Reed, who stared back with a smirk that said, "Kids lie." But then Jamal pointed that small, accusatory finger slicing through the tension like a knife. He shot him. Mr. Tyrone didn't have no knife. He was begging, hands up, and that man just shot him cold. Gasps rippled through the courtroom, but that was just the beginning. Reed's lawyer, a slick shark named Barton Crow, leaped up for cross-examination. His questions barbed. "Isn't it true, young man, that you were scared, hiding, maybe didn't see clearly? Kids your age imagine things, don't they?" Jamal shook his head, tears welling. "No, sir, I saw it all, and there's more." The room fell silent as a grave. "More," Vasquez prompted, sensing the twist. Jamal took a deep breath, his voice gaining strength. "That officer, ... he wasn't alone. There was another man in the shadows, watching. He handed him something after the knife, I think, and he said, 'Cover it up, like last time.'" Pandemonium erupted. Reed's face drained of color, his composure cracking like cheap glass. The other man, Jamal, described, matched the description of Captain Lyle Monroe, Reed's superior, a high-ranking official embroiled in a string of covered-up shootings that activists had long suspected but could never prove. This wasn't just manslaughter. It was a conspiracy. A rotten core at the heart of the Atlanta PD. The trial spiraled into chaos. Recess called, investigations launched, Monroe subpoenaed overnight. But twists layered upon twists. As detectives dug, they uncovered that Tyrone Hayes wasn't random. He was Reed's illegitimate half-brother, a family secret buried in old records. And the boosted car was a setup to silence Tyrone, who knew about Reed's involvement in a drug ring funneling narcotics through the precinct. Jamal's testimony wasn't just shocking. It was the thread unraveling a tapestry of corruption that reached City Hall. Miss Etta, fearing retaliation, went into hiding with Jamal, protected by community guardians who formed a human shield against threats that poured in anonymous calls, bricks, through windows. Elena Vasquez, now a target herself, pushed forward, her own backstory emerging. Daughter of immigrants, she'd lost a brother to police violence in LA, fueling her fire. Reed, cornered, turned state's evidence, ratting out Monroe for a plea deal. But not before a dramatic escape attempt where he fled the courthouse, only to be recaptured in a high-speed chase broadcast live on CNN, captivating audiences from New York to London. The UK papers splashed it across front pages, drawing parallels to their own scandals, like the Stephen Lawrence case, where institutional racism festered unchecked. Jamal became a Simbola, reluctant hero whose pointing finger toppled giants. But the story didn't end with convictions. Twists deepened. Post-trial, Jamal received letters from an unknown sender, his father, from prison, claiming innocence in his own case, linked to the same corrupt ringleader exposed. Miss Etta revealed a hidden photo album showing Jamal's mother, alive, in witness protection, having faked her disappearance to escape the very drug lords Reed protected. Reunions followed, tearful and tentative, in a safe house outside the city. Jamal grew, not unscarred, but resilient, channeling his trauma into advocacy, speaking at rallies with a voice that belied his age. Years later, as a teen, he pointed, again not in court, but at podiums, accusing systems of failing black youth. The shock,